Last year was the first time that we did a conference, and it was amazing, so we're back.
So we have a few announcements that will help make your WeRise experience go more smoothly. So first, there's a mobile app for the conference. This is really cool because it will give you all the information the kind of frequently asked questions, but it'll also allow you to make your own schedule, so you can kind of keep track of what you want to see for the day. So definitely go download that. We have that for Android and iOS. Our Wi-Fi information is in the mobile app as well, but it's also at the front desk and in our slides that we'll be showing kind of moving later. And the Wi-Fi for the conference is LCC, and the password is convene18. We have a change in the full stack track. One of our speakers had to cancel, unfortunately, for illness. And so we have amazing speakers at WeRise that just have talks ready to go. And so Steve Plessy, who's a software architect at SalesLoft and who is speaking later on Ruby, will also be speaking in place of that talk at 11 a.m. today in the full stack room on the second floor. And he'll be speaking about Elixir in production, kind of taking some lessons learned from our experience using Elixir at SalesLoft. Oh, our Lyft code has been updated. So it's a little bit simpler now. It's just WeRise ATL. So update that. We'll update that in the mobile app and on the website and on our slides as well. Oh, so we just found out that you can use Lyft outside of just the Loudermilk Conference Center. So you can use it in the Atlanta area. So if you're going to the airport, this would be a really good time to use it because it's 25% off. So make sure that you update that code and use that promo. Yes. So our mobile team is amazing. Our mobile team is really just volunteers from the Women Who Code Atlanta network, and they created this app on their own time. They all have full-time jobs and did this kind of on the side, and it's an amazing app. So please download it. And also, where are you? Are you in the room? Are any of you in the room? Terry, Marissa? Yes, in the room. Announcements, but we will also have a few more announcements as the conference goes on.
I actually have some more announcements. On the second floor, we have a sticker table. So we're celebrating Pride this month, so we have some special WeRise edition, Pride Edition stickers. You can also put your own stickers up there if you want to hand some out. We will have a photo booth upstairs as well, starting at lunch, so take pictures up there. If you tag your pictures, hashtag WeRiseTech, hashtag Pride 2018, we're actually going to be selecting some winners to win our special limited edition WeRise Pride shirts. So, yeah, take pictures.
So in addition to celebrating Pride, we want WeRise to be about celebrating you and making sure that you take some time for yourself and celebrate how awesome you are. And so we're going to do that this way.
And so now we will bring up our amazing MC for the event. She was also our MC for last year's conference, Stephanie Jewett.
Hey y'all, hey. Hey. My name is Stephanie Jewett. Thank you guys for having me back this year. I am so honored and so grateful to be with you gals, mainly gals and some of our guy friends. So I wanted to say that I'm a founder too. I'm in tech, I have a mobile app, and I know how often it is that you might be the only woman and the only woman of color in the room. And so I know how lonely and how frustrating and at times difficult that can be, which makes this so special to be in a room surrounded by the most brilliant, the most talented people in your field, and the majority of them happen to be women. So I want to make sure that we take advantage and that we're aware. I would be remiss if I didn't point out what a rare opportunity and how special this is. This is a moment in history, because when people come together with shared goals and ambitions, that's how change happens, and that's how we get more women and people of color in the room and in technology. But I wanted to also point out that We Rise Tech Conference is more than just about workshops and learning, and certainly it's about that. But it's about community. It's about connecting with one another. You look to your left, you look to your right, and there are talented people just as ambitious as you. And in this room right now might be the next person you collaborate on a startup with. There might be the next Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. There might be your next boss, your next mentor. There are people that you can lean on. But it's incumbent upon you to extend your hand and say, hey, I'm Stephanie. I saw you at the workshop. Can I sit with you? If you see somebody who might be a little more bashful, say hello, right? Some of us are a little more shy than others. And so I wanted to really say thank you to Elena for creating this community and being one of those people. Even yesterday when I talked to her about my startup, and I'm still a new startup and I'm still learning, she offered to be there for me. She's like, look, when the time comes and you need advice on investing, on mentorship, whatever it is that you need speaking to investors, ask me for help. I know what I'm doing. I've been there before and I can guide you. And that's what this is about. And it's about women like her being there and us being there for one another. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Elena Percival.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am an Atlanta native, and we actually just opened up the Women Who Code Worldwide headquarters in Atlanta this spring. So, pretty exciting. We are the largest and most active community of technical women in the world. Our mission is to inspire women to excel in technology careers. Because if you don't stay in your career throughout the entirety of it, you're not going to make it to senior architect, vice president of engineering, founder, investor, CEO, whatever it is that is your dream. And we envision a world where women are representative in those roles. And so that's what we're working towards. Our community continues to grow. We've now begun to serve 137,000 women around the world. We're putting on an average of over 5 free technical events on a daily basis, every single day throughout the year. And in our weekly newsletter, The Code Review, we've given away $2.7 million in scholarships and conference tickets because we don't want you to just participate in our programs. We want you to engage in the broader tech community, and we want to lower the barrier to that. We're also growing. So I'm here, and being an Atlanta native, I absolutely love this network, but we also have directors from other cities around the world. Are there anyone in this room? Is there Manila here, Tampa? We've got a couple of directors from all over the world who've come in to participate in this. And so we have this amazing community, and we get to see it. And when you go to an event in Wichita, Kansas, or Bangalore, or Ghana, then you really get to see that this experience and this spirit and that Women Who Code DNA replicates itself around the world. And we're looking to do that even more by inviting 47 new cities to join Women Who Code this year. We also are working towards creating a more customized experience through our online profiles at womenwhocode.com. That way, if you are interested in speaking and we know that you're an Android engineer, we can make sure that we're delivering that opportunities specifically to you. If you're interested in media opportunities and the press comes to us and they say, we're looking for a cryptocurrency expert, we can say, oh, this person is a cryptocurrency enthusiast and they have agreed to have these opportunities. We also have, in honor of Pride Month, introduced our Women Who Code's new Pride logo, and this isn't a logo that's just going to be part of our community for the month of June. We always are part of and welcome the LGBTQ+ community. We're also rolling out company membership, but because we know that by working directly with companies, we're going to achieve our mission much faster. If we can make sure that companies are adopting best practices, we're sharing best practices with our community and with companies that are employing our community. And another thing that's going to be really, really important this year, and we kicked it off by actually hitting GDPR deadlines. Huge thanks to our compliance manager, Brittany Smalls. Security has always been important to Women Who Code, from in-person security to data security, because our members from the beginning have been leaving events at 9:30 at night, and it's important that they all get home safely. So when you're leaving here today and tomorrow, be sure to make sure that you're getting home safely. Either take a Lyft, if you're taking public transportation, go walk with people. Really think about safety. And we're also going to be launching track communities. So Women Who Code is existing in 60 cities and 20 countries around the world. And we want to make sure that we are uniting those leads. So if you're an Android engineer in Atlanta and Tampa and New York City and San Francisco and Kenya and Cape Town, that you're able to join that community and share best practices, share materials, and be able to really be part of a thought leadership community in your specific track. So please, as we're launching these communities, as we're launching customization, go to womenwhocode.com, make sure that your profile is filled out so we can make sure that you have the best of Women Who Code coming directly to you. Thank you. So I also have the honor of introducing the next speaker. Jennifer Bland is a senior software engineer who's been part of the Women Who Code Atlanta community since the very beginning, and she has a very exciting, passionate story to share with you today.
Set up and connected. I'm actually going to depend on this young lady that's coming in to do this for me. All right. I want to say thank you to Erica, Beth, and Angel for giving me the opportunity, to be here today and to speak at the WeRise conference. My speech is titled, A Front Row Seat to a Revolution. I'm very fortunate to have joined up with Women Who Code Atlanta shortly after it was founded. And today I want to give you my perspective of what it has been like and as things have happened from my very first meeting through to today. So every revolution needs its cast of instigators. This is the cast for this revolution. Everything started with Erica Stanley. Without her vision, but most importantly, without her action, this would not have been possible. You and I would not be here today. For the first year, Women Code was run solely by Erica Stanley. The second year, Alicia Carr and Beth Lang joined up as co-directors to help lead the Women Who Code Atlanta chapter. Last year, Angel Banks joined as a co-director, replacing Alicia Carr's. Now that I've given you some stage about this revolution, let me give you some statistics. Do I even need to tell you, as a female in tech, why we need a revolution? Here are 4 statistics that I've pulled out here to show you what it's like. If you're a female in high school and you're interested in STEM, studies have shown that over 64% of those people are interested in a career in STEM. By the time they get to college, that number has drastically reduced. Of the people that do bother to get a degree in STEM, only 3% want to make that their first choice as their career. We have a problem in tech. It's something that needs to be improved. It is for that reason we need to have this revolution so that we can change things and make everything on parity for women in engineering. My educational background has, 2 unique mileposts. Number 1, I graduated from university before IBM introduced the PC. Number 2, I earned my MBA before the internet came out. So I've been in this industry for a long time. And yes, I did start with punch cards, working on IBM mainframe computers, because like I said, the PC never came out until after I had graduated from college. But so, let me give you some my firsthand perspectives of what it's been like in my career, my 35+ year career in tech. When I was in high school, my sophomore year, I was taking honors math, which is equivalent to taking the junior level math course at my high school. Also, there was an advanced math course, which was equivalent of taking the senior level math that you could have been taking your sophomore year in high school. I was bored, even though I was in the advanced math class, I was bored. I was acing all the tests. I don't feel I was challenged from that. So in midterm, I approached my headmaster. And yes, I say headmaster because up until I earned my MBA, I have always had private education my entire life. So we had a headmaster, we didn't have a principal. And I approached him and I said, I would like to move into the advanced math class. And his response was, that's a class for men. I never made it. I did, though, finish high school with the equivalent of a year's worth of college calculus credits because of my the advanced courses that I did take my junior and my senior year. After I graduated from university, I wanted to get my master's in computer science because at that time the field was starting to grow. The PC had come out and it was starting to improve. And I wanted to get my master's in computer science. So I wrote to the dean of the computer science department at my university and says, I would like to get my master's. Would you write me a letter of recommendation that I can use as part of my application? He was very polite, he wrote back, and he says that is a role for men, and he would not write me a letter of recommendation. Several years into my career, I was doing a lot of programming and development. A company hired me to do a training class for them. I was being paid back then, and we're talking about 25 years ago, the equivalent of like 75 bucks an hour, which is probably equivalent to like 300 bucks an hour today, to teach his company on the skill sets that I had learned and had mastered. So before the class started, I'm sitting on the front row of the event, and it was this room that had, you know, the seats kind of went up. It was like a lecture environment. 150 people were going to be in this training class. And I'm sitting there just going through my thoughts, ready for my speech. This man, who was evidently a senior person in this company, came walking up to me. And do you know what he said? Will you go get me a cup of coffee? To him, I was not the person that was qualified to teach that class. The only thing I was qualified was to just go get him a cup of coffee. So this is what my career is like. I'm sure all of you have experienced something similar in your life, in your career, in your education. If you have, raise your hand. This is a problem that we have in tech, and this is why we need to have a revolution. So let me give you some information and some backgrounds about myself. A lot of you have heard me talk about my background and how I've come to be a part of Women Who Code. But let me share my background and my experience with you. For many, many years, I used to be a Lotus Notes programmer. I did it for over 10 years. I was really good at it. IBM hired me to write a book on programming Lotus Notes for them. After a while, I decided to get out of programming. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you have ever worked for a company that at one time used Lotus Notes? Okay. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you work for a company today that uses Lotus Notes? One person. It's probably my old employer. Now you understand why I got out of tech initially, and I moved into another direction. And I worked with a couple of other jobs. The last job that I had, I was a project manager in the training department at Aaron's. So shout out to Aaron's, who is one of our sponsors here today. And I worked in their training department, and we created training classes for their store employees as well as their home office employees. While I was working there for over 5 years, I started building up an internet marketing business. And eventually, that internet marketing business grew. And I made a point for that 5 years. What I did was I got up every morning, and for 1 hour, I spent 1 hour on my internet marketing business. When I got home from work, every evening, I spent 1 hour on my internet marketing business. I never wavered from doing that for 5 years. And eventually, that internet marketing business grew to a point that 10 hours that I was spending on it was generating more income than my salary I was getting from working 40 plus hours at Aaron's. So I did what was the logical thing to do. I took a piece of paper and a pencil, or a pen, blue ink, and I wrote a note to my manager. And it started off with, "Dear Kim, I regret to inform you, but your services are no longer needed." At the age of 51, my internet marketing business had grown to the point where I'm in the enviable position that I never have to work again a day in my life. And so at 51, I retired. And I was retired for about 18 months. And one day I walked into the Barnes & Noble, which is over in Virginia Highlands off of Carolina Street, if you've ever been to that location. And when you walk in the door, they have this clearance table where they have books that they're just trying to get rid of. And there was a book on JavaScript. It was $1. The dollar is what interested me, and it was a book on programming. So you know what the heck? I picked it up, bought it. That was in November of 2014. So from between Thanksgiving and Christmas that year, I worked through that book on JavaScript and learned it. And then I sat down and I had to realize that yes, there's a lot that can go on. There's a lot to say that you don't have to go to a day job from 9 to 5 ever again. There's the passion that you had for programming. And that passion for programming won out. And I decided, I'm going back into programming. And I decided, well, I'm not going to get a 4-year degree, not at my age, you know. So the coding boot camps were starting to come on the scene at that time. So I ended up joining a coding boot camp. As part of my coding boot camp, what I had to do was 6 weeks of pre-course material. So in January of 2015, I attended my very first meetup with Women Who Code. Women Who Code was started at the end of 2014, so I joined at the very beginning. My very first meetup in January of 2015, I remember it very clearly because I was needing somebody that was going to help me with my pre-course material. At the event, I was there, Erica Stanley was there, but most importantly, there were 4 other people that showed up. So my very first interface with Women Who Code turned out to be myself and 4 other people. So that was my first introduction to them. I kept attending Code Jams on Sundays as I prepared for my coursework. And then in March, I started my coding boot camp. That was going to be the start of my new life. So let me tell you the story of an adult elephant and the ball and chain. Like the adult elephant that is raised tied to a small stake and a short chain, many of us fail to realize our full potential because we don't let go of outdated beliefs and false realities. For the elephant, the reality is that she can easily break free of the stake and chain. Freedom is within her power. But sadly, she's been conditioned to believe otherwise. At infancy, she was secured to a small stake and chain that at that time could restrain her. Despite her natural instincts to break free and pursue her own path, she couldn't. After consistent exposure to this agony, she learned to accept the limitations as a permanent truth. Unfortunately, as she grew into a mighty adult, she never challenged what she had learned out of her belief that the effort would be futile, even painful. Many of us suffer a similar experience. If we are to avoid a similar fate, we must first of all learn much of what conventional wisdom has taught us, that we are free to seize our potential. During the 3 months of my coding boot camp in early 2015, I had a birthday. I turned 53. Women face an uphill battle getting into tech. It's pretty impossible for an older woman that's literally older than the mothers of all of their co-workers. And when I graduated from coding boot camp, that was the uphill battle that I faced. Luckily, I got a job working for CNN. I started my new job in tech exactly 30 days after I graduated from coding boot camp. I graduated June 20th, I started July 20th. I shall always remember those dates. At this point in my life, it's when I came into this revolution. I was committed to it. I just didn't realize I was in a revolution at that time. Several months later, I was able to make my first contribution to this revolution by placing a fellow Women Who Code member on my team at CNN. The revolution for my development team at CNN had just increased by 100%. Now there were 2 of us. There were strength in numbers. Though I never said it directly, Having a fellow Women Who Code member on my team, it empowered me. There have been many ways in which the lives of Women Who Code members have been impacted by this revolution. There have been many of us that have gotten into tech by attending a coding boot camp. Others that have been given the opportunity to attend an event by winning a scholarship through Women Who Code. Several of us have created products to help out others to learn about tech. With the rise of the Atlanta chapter of Women Who Code, there have been a number of people that have found themselves emboldened to speak at their very first tech conference. Several of the speakers that you will hear today and tomorrow are giving their very first speech. After their speech is over, be sure to congratulate them on their success. There are among us that have taken pen to paper and have written articles that have been published in many different publications that are out there. And we have talked on a wide range of things. There are many among us that have won very elite awards. The number of people in this group that have gotten their very first job in tech is staggering. The barometer is one of the measurements of any revolution, and by this standard, we have had a resounding success. So what would you do if you knew you could not fail? For many of the members of Women Who Code, that answer is to invest in themselves. This investment generally takes the format of attending a coding boot camp. A coding boot camp is generally 3 months long if you attend full-time. It can be 6 months long if you attend on a part-time basis. But the goal of a coding boot camp is to teach you just enough about programming so that you can break into tech. I think coding boot camps are a great program to help women to get into tech and into this industry. They are much, much cheaper than a 4-year degree. They take much less time. They can be completed in just as little as 3 months, and then you can get into tech. So, how many Women Who Code members have invested in themselves by attending a coding boot camp? Well, let me show you some statistics. Danielle Bowman graduated from a coding boot camp. Beth Lang graduated from a coding boot camp. Angel Banks graduated from a coding boot camp. Ann Hu graduated from a coding boot camp. Brittany Gates, Adora Chalker, Marion Scott, all graduated from a coding boot camp. Grace didn't graduate from a coding boot camp, she just created one. So, when you look at this revolution, it's not limited to just these 8 women that have invested in themselves by attending a coding boot camp. So for ease of presentation, I've grouped these women by the coding boot camp that they have participated in and attended in the past 12 months. So here it is, and I apologize in advance if I have missed anyone. So for General Assembly, these are the people from Women Who Code that have graduated from there. And as you can see, it's a wide range of people. Digital Crafts is another coding boot camp located here in Atlanta. These are the women that have graduated from there. Thankful is an online coding boot camp. If you don't want to do a full-time coding boot camp, Thankful is a great resource that you can do where you can do it in the nights and then on the weekends. These are the people that graduated from Thankful. Georgia Tech recently started their own coding boot camp. We have quite a few people in this room that have graduated from Georgia Tech. In fact, I actually have to do 2 slides. So this gives you, we also have people that have graduated from Career Code Academy and from the Iron Yard. So when you look at a coding boot camp, in the past year, there have been 54 women that I know of, there's probably more, one person every week of the year. There's a saying that says, be the change you want to see in the world. These 54 women are leading the way here in Atlanta. Their presence is having an impact on their employers, but they also have created a ripple effect. So a stone dropped in a pond generates waves in a beautiful changing pattern, a rippling ring radiating outward from a center that gradually returns to quietude. The expanding ring is called a wave packet. I think in the future they're going to rename that to Women Who Code Atlanta. Individual waves travel at different speeds, the long ones going fastest and the shortest ones slowest. The overall amplitude is greatest where the waves interact with each other constructively to produce the peak of the packet. The speed of this peak is the group velocity. The pebble that Erica Stanley initially dropped in the pond that is in Atlanta has rippled outwards and magnified itself to the point that on average, a woman graduates from a coding boot camp every week of the year. Likewise, these women have created their own ripples in the pond. As I mentioned earlier, my first meeting, there were only 4 people. Last year, 54 women graduated from a coding boot camp. It's one thing to learn something from a coding boot camp. The question is, can you apply what you have learned? You can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? In tech, the most obvious way to show what you have learned is through a hackathon. A hackathon is an opportunity for a group of people to take their skills and build something, anything, over a weekend. At the end of the weekend, every team presents what they have built. The best solutions are awarded as winners. Hackathons are effective in measuring how well you walk the walk because you're expected to create a working prototype of some idea in 48 hours. Are the women who have recently ventured into tech, are they able to prove their skills when it comes to a hackathon? So let me give you some examples. Marissa and Kana were on the winning team for the FinTech Hackathon. As a result, they won $6,000 for their best use of the API. Ann Fu was on the team that won honorable mention at the MARTA Hackathon. Ann doubled down on her skills when she partnered with Brittany Smalls at the AT&T C3 Hackathon. Their team was selected as a finalist. Amber was on the team that won the Healthcare Hackathon. In 2016, Women Who Code created their very own hackathon. It was a hackathon only for women, for being able to attend. Almost 100 women showed up to participate in this hackathon. Shown here is a team that actually won that hackathon that first year. The winning team had several members in which it was their very first hackathon that they had ever participated in. After the hackathon, 6 members of Women Who Code Atlanta were hired by Home Depot as developers. Last October, Women Who Code held their second hackathon. The event started on a Friday and concluded on a Sunday. Saturday morning, I was walking around to all the rooms, checking on all the teams, because my job at that hackathon was to be responsible for the mentors that would help the teams if they needed help. And I walked into a room, and there was one person sitting at the table. And I'm confused, and I'm like, where's your team? And the lady just kind of looked at me, looked up at what she was doing. She said, they're in class, and just put her head down and kept working. Now I'm confused, because as the mentor, I didn't have a training class planned, so I don't know where they went. So I asked again, I said, where is your team? And she said, they're in class. You see, most of the people on that team were actually students at the Georgia Tech Coding Boot Camp. And that part-time program meets on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, but they also meet for 3 hours on Saturday mornings. So in the middle of the hackathon, almost the entire team walked over to Georgia Tech to go get their education at the Coding Boot Camp, and then they came back. Most of those people were on the team that actually won the competition. So the only question I need to ask is, click this button again. Here we go. Is the revolution accomplishing its goal? Earlier I shared my experience of what it was like for me in the tech industry. I also shared some stats that show the wide disparity of women in STEM. If you're a developer, the first place that you go to find answers is called Stack Overflow. Every year, they put out a survey. They recently announced their survey results a couple of months ago, maybe not quite that long ago. Over 100,000 people worldwide filled out that survey. The shocking thing about that survey, only 8% of the respondents were female. The purpose of this revolution is to get more people into tech. I have shown you the success of an average of 1 female a week graduating from a coding boot camp. I've shown that these women are able to apply their skills by participating in hackathons and winning in those hackathons. So the big question is are these people finding jobs here in tech? These 4 people recently completed an internship. For some people, that's their first step into getting a job into tech. So shout out to Alicia, Irene, Adele, and Noelle, who all created their own internship. So the next question is, are women able to get a job in tech beyond an internship? So the answer is yes. So just read the slides and see, these are the people in the past year that have gone out and gotten their jobs in tech. Whitley Bacon, Angel, Deanna, Ellen, Deanne, Anna, Adora, Naya, all got a job in tech. And if you read that, you will see something in particular. For a lot of them, it says they got their first job in tech. So let me give you some more examples of people that hear from Women Who Code Atlanta that have gotten their first job in tech in the past year. And I'm not finished. There's more. All of these people have gotten their first job in tech as a result of Women Who Code. So my front row seat of this revolution started with 4 people. 2 years later, it grew into the very first tech conference for women east of the Mississippi, from 4 people to 400 plus people attending this conference. Let me take a minute to show you exactly what impact the first We Rise conference had by showing you the number of women that attended that conference. On my next slide, each image represents a female that attended the We Rise conference last year. So for this revolution, in the past 2 years, I've seen the growth of Women Who Code Atlanta go from 4 people to over 400 people attending their first tech conference for women, by women. where most of the speakers are women. Today, We Rise increased attendance by 25%. Look around you. There are 500 people that are here attending this event today. That number doesn't include the number of women that are also here as speakers. Women in Code Atlanta is one of the top 10 Women in Code chapters in the world. If you have a cell phone, you need to get it out. Okay? Audience participation is required for my next slide. Okay? All right. Luckily, my sisters are helping me out because the room is about to go dark. Has this revolution been successful? Any of you know anything about